What is going on, everybody? I am back today to do part 2 of a video that I released not too long ago that a lot of you commented on and said I'd really like to see a part 2. And after this, you'll probably end up getting a part 3 if you have enough demand for it, because I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite directors. And in part 1, I covered, I think, 5 directors that are some of my favorite directors. And it's really difficult because I feel like over time, when you've watched as many movies as I have, the thousands of movies that I've watched in my lifetime, you develop favorite directors. You develop people who you constantly want to go back, seek their work. There are directors, whenever their names pop up on anything, that I'm going to be there right away. And there are directors on this list that I haven't seen all their movies. And that's kind of fun too, when you have a director you love that you haven't seen all their work. And in the last video, I covered a few directors. And in this video, I'm going to cover a few more. And I'm excited to tell you about them today. So without further ado, let's get into my part 2 of some of my favorite directors list. So first up on this list is going to be director Paul Thomas Anderson. I've talked about Paul Thomas Anderson a lot on my TikTok and on my YouTube. PTA is one of the greatest that has ever done it in his career for a reason. PTA has blown my mind again and again. I still have yet to see Magnolia, Boogie Nights, and Inherent Vice, but I've seen every other film that he's made, and I have been absolutely blown away by every single film in his catalog. He is truly a master of character writing. He writes some of the most interesting characters that I've ever seen in a movie, and even if they're not examined 100% to the core, there's so much there that you're given that it keeps your mind going all over the place. His cinematography is absolutely brilliant in all of his films. His movies are just so well shot. You can tell that when he's developing the film with his cinematographer, that there's so much attention to detail as to what is going to be in a frame. There's intentionality in every scene. And I just think the guy has a virtually flawless catalog. Licorice Pizza was my favorite film of 2021. I love Phantom Thread. Phantom Thread is probably in my top 10 movies of all time. I just think there's something so incredible about a director who every single time he takes on a film, he covers a different time period, a different subject matter. It really takes a lot for a director to seem like they step out of their comfort zone consistently to make something so new and exciting, and to do it in a way that's constantly successful is just absolutely amazing. To think like There Will Be Blood is such a phenomenal film, and like I can't criticize a single thing about that movie. I think it's perfect. But there's still films in his catalog I like more than that. And that to me is like a testament of an amazing filmmaker when you can have a pitch perfect movie that I have no notes for. There's nothing I could think of to even critique, and you've made something that I like even more than that. That, to me, is an impressive filmmaker, and I just love PTA. It doesn't matter what it is, I'm going to watch it that he releases. Even things like the Anima short music video that he made for Tom York. Like, anytime he puts anything out, I'm there and ready to watch it, because he is just such an interesting director that is so talented. And if you've never seen a PTA movie, you're really missing out, because the guy is one of the greatest to ever do it, and I look forward to whatever he's going to make next. Up next, I want to talk about a filmmaker who made me fall in love with movies, and that is the director Edgar Wright. There are 2 directors that I credit to making me fall in love with film when I was at a very young age, and that made me think more critically about what film is, and Edgar Wright is one of the first to do it. I very much remember in 2007 watching Hot Fuzz for the first time, and I was 16 going on 17 years old, and that was really the first time that I thought about filmmaking as more of just I'm an audience member watching a movie, because Edgar Wright is one of the most detail-oriented filmmakers that exists. The way he works with his cinematographers to where the camera is a punchline of a lot of his jokes is incredibly impressive to me. And the thing about Edgar Wright is, no matter what movie you're looking at, especially early in his filmography, Cornetto Trilogy and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World especially, the amount of times that I've revisited those films and gotten something new out of it, even seeing them 15 to 20 times, that I can watch those movies and pull something different out of each and every film, says something about the filmmaker. And he is just, bar none, one of the most talented talented directors out there, and I think every one of his films is worth watching. One of my favorite films of all time is Hot Fuzz because of what it did for me and my love of filmmaking. I think it's a comedic masterpiece. It's also a suspense. It's also a horror film at times. The way that you can cover such an array of genres in a 2-hour runtime and do it seamlessly in a way that doesn't feel sloppy or lazy is really impressive to me. And I think throughout his career, he's consistently pushed the envelope as to what he's capable of. Obviously, the Cornetto trilogy falls in the realm of films that feel similar tonally but have different subject matter. Scott Pilgrim kind of pushed the boundaries by using a piece of material that already existed with the comic book series. Baby Driver was an original idea culminating a lot of things that he loved in movies. And Last Night in Soho is something completely different than he's ever done before. And I think that's really incredible with a filmmaker like Edgar, who's been in the industry a while, who could continue to do the same type of thing that he's always done, but challenges himself as a filmmaker to make something new and inventive and exciting. And he's someone who, once again, no matter what he releases in the theater, I will always be there to support him. His movies are so funny, and they're thought-provoking, and they're well put together, and I love him a lot. Up next is going to be a filmmaker that if you followed me on TikTok for a while, I've spoken about multiple times, and that is director Lynn Ramsey. And Lynn has only made 4 films in her career, and I have seen 3 of the 4 films that she has made, and what I can tell you is, for 4 films, she is consistent. She constantly says something so important with every one of her films that she's made. She gets great performances from her actors, and she's really covered a wide array of genres within the time that she's been making movies. One of her earliest films, Ratcatcher, which is actually on the Criterion Collection, is a really intimate, familial drama taking place through a very specific time in this country's history. And so you have that as a backdrop to the film, while at the same time having this really beautiful familial dynamic where this young kid feels like an outcast from the rest of his family, and he has this dark secret that he's hiding from everyone around him. And it's all about how he interacts with his family and the things that are going on between him and his family members. And it's executed so well. And then I haven't seen Morven Caller, but after that she made We Need to Talk About Kevin with Tilda Swinton, John C. Reilly, and Ezra Miller, who has really lived up to that role in his real life. But that movie is really interesting when it comes to the human psyche and thinking about a lot of tragedies that have happened in the world, and what kind of things in the familial dynamic can trigger things psychologically for someone to commit a really heinous act. And I think that the tension in that film builds, because Ratcatcher is much more of a thoughtful, somber piece of filmmaking that has lighthearted moments. There's that coming-of-age element. But We Need to Talk About Kevin is a much darker film, and that darkness kind of looms from the first frame and just grows as you watch the movie, and just grows into something really visceral and horrifying. And the third act of that film always really takes me by surprise. And then her newest film that she's made in her career, which is actually my favorite film that she's made in her catalog, which doesn't always happen normally, is You Were Never Really Here, starring Joaquin Phoenix, which is an incredibly dark and somber film about a man who hunts child predators. It's only an hour and 20 minutes long, but what I can say is that for an hour and 20-minute runtime, it effectively utilizes the runtime to convey its message in a way that is essentially like stabbing you in the gut over and over again. Like, here's what I'm trying to say, I'm gonna say it, and I'm gonna get it across to you in a really fast and quick way that will resonate with you for a very long time. After the credits have rolled, that film has a score from Johnny Greenwood that is so strange and ethereal, and really accompanies the film well with the different types of genres that the soundtrack covers, because there's some really hard-hitting moments and there's some really quiet moments in the soundtrack, which I think Johnny Greenwood is a brilliant composer. Joaquin gives an amazing performance in that film. Just a fantastic filmography from a director who she is just so talented, so capable. Every time I've watched one of her movies, I've been blown away. I can't wait to watch Morven Caller. I know I'm going to love it whenever I see it. But check out some of Lynn's work. She's such an amazing director. Up next, and I know this is a bit of a modern pick. My last one, I had a couple modern picks that don't necessarily have the lengthiest catalogs as directors yet. But I want to mention Jordan Peele, because As someone who loves horror, I think Jordan Peele is really kind of redefining the landscape of horror. I think what he is doing for horror films, and not only the incorporation of his comedic background, but also being able to make films that are very socially aware and saying something much larger than just being a fun time at the movies, is very impressive. And the way that he incorporates those things in his movies is so nuanced and brilliant. I think about what a staple in film Get Out was, and just how much culturally that shifted our world. Because unfortunately, when we're talking about the landscape of directors over time, the directors that are talked about the most in our culture are white men normally. White men are talked about more than anyone, and then obviously men from all different countries and backgrounds get talked about after that. When it comes to people of color in the directorial helm, there are some incredible people of color that have been working in film for years and years and years. And what I love about Jordan Peele coming into the horror landscape is showing that, like, I can make a movie that is socially conscious, that's also incredibly hilarious, that's thoughtful, and that's genuinely scary. And to be able to juggle all of those things and put them in one movie is so impressive to me. He has great cinematography in all three of his films. Get Out blew me away. Us blew me away cinematographically, and Nope is just an incredible execution in everything that he's built up to as a director. I feel like Us really got slept on when it came out, and I feel like Us is a really great episode of the Twilight Zone. I think that all the character writing in it's great. I think the suspense is built up so well. It's a fantastic movie that I always enjoy when I revisit it. And Nope, to me, was Jordan Peele's Spielberg moment. I feel like that movie is so character driven. All of the performances in it are fantastic. But what I love is that the character writing makes the movie so engaging and interesting, but it doesn't fall short on the horror either. A lot of people were saying that Nope didn't have enough horror, and I think the horrifying elements of that movie resonated in my brain more than things in his previous two films did. There are so many sequences that are just drilled in my head from that movie. And I think it's incredibly impressive for a director so early in his career to have only made 3 films, that all 3 films have been incredible first watches. He's just such a talented director. He's a director that I will continue to watch for years and years to come, and I can't wait for whatever he makes next. And then for this video, I'll talk about one more director. This is another director who doesn't have a very large catalog, but he's a director I love quite a bit, and that is director Ari Aster, another director that only has 3 films, but I've talked about Robert Eggers, I've talked about Barry Jenkins, I just talked about Jordan Peele. Ari Aster is someone who has made 3 films that I absolutely love. I think all 3 of the films in Ari Aster's catalog are incredibly impressive, well put together, well shot movies that consistently impress me again and again. He is just someone who I continue to watch and love, and has made 3 vastly different movies. Hereditary is a phenomenal horror film that's also a familial drama that is performance driven, has a great score, so well put together. It's a movie I think about all the time. Midsummer is another phenomenal horror film that takes place mostly in the daytime, which is incredible for any type of a director to be able to accomplish. Great performance from Florence Pugh. It's a movie I think about quite a bit, another phenomenal score. And then Beau is Afraid, a relatively recent release, but a movie that on my initial watch I was blown away by because it's so much different than what Ari has made in the past. I feel like it's executed really well. The runtime is a little bit bloated, but I think on revisits I could grow to appreciate that more. Maybe there's elements of it that I didn't feel like necessarily needed to be there in the beginning, but that maybe on revisits and knowing what I'm getting into a little bit more, that I'll grow to appreciate more. But I think that the man has just crafted 3 of the most interesting, immersive, and engaging films that I've seen. He is so talented. He gets the most out of his actors. He's someone I look forward to whatever he's going to make next, and I will constantly watch whatever he releases. So that is part 2 of my some of my favorite directors. Would you like to see a part 3? I could probably make like a 10-part series on this. If you're enjoying them, I will continue to make them and talk about these directors because I love going on and on about my favorite filmmakers. As always, if you like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material. Looking forward to getting more out there for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.